Welcome back to the Thought Leadership Series here on Online Marketing TV. Chris, Mike, Matt, Frederick, welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. So let's start big picture here and talk about the state of media, right? You guys represent a lot of media organizations or companies that work closely with media organizations, and we're here in the middle of this digital transformation. Where do things stand in your mind's eye? Where are we with media? Where are things going? Are we going from a disintermediation back to, bringing all the big boys together, like AOL buying Huffington Post, and, is this going to start to go away, or are we still pretty fragmented? What's the thought process for you guys these days?
From my perspective, I think, even with the acquisition of Huffington Post, I think everything's becoming more local. I think from at least where I'm sitting, the more that I look at the media space, the more I see that really local is that bridge between sort of old media and new media. So I think that acquisition of Huffington Post, as you mentioned, is a perfect example of that.
Just handhelds in general, I think we're starting to see that the paywalls might be coming back a bit, and the talk that all media will be free in the future, I think that's kind of dissipated quite a bit.
So relief for some of those publishers out there to be thinking about that again.
Yeah, and then another big trend I think year on year is just that ad revenue is coming back strong. Last year we talked a little bit about the death of the banner ad, and I can tell you now that we're getting twice of what we might have gotten last year for the same positioning. So
yeah, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Frederick, what's Google guys say about this?
Well, at Google, we think some of the big trends are local, mobile, and social.
Yeah.
And obviously we...
Hold on, search isn't a big trend anymore?
People are doing search just fine. But,
that's safe, you should say.
That's exactly
an established industry now.
Exactly. And so, but when it comes really from the content perspective and whether that content is being consolidated or there's a lot of unique, different voices, we really want to fund having lots of unique voices out there, and so you can see that in our YouTube system where we're really giving opportunities to content creators to start monetizing that in a way that they would never have been able to do that in the past.
Yep.
And the same thing with the AdSense network, right? So if you have great content to publish, we'll make sure that you can actually make some money from that. Because at the end of the day, Google being a search company, we can't do much if there's not great content to be searched. And so we want to do whatever we can to really stimulate that.
It's so philanthropic of Google to be giving us this money through AdSense. You guys are the best. I'm telling you.
We're looking out for the little guy. That's
I'm just kidding. I am a big fan of Google. So this kind of gets me thinking about the whole journalistic conversation, right? How does this play out? Are we just going to be out there and freelancing with everybody and just pulling the good stuff down based on exposure, or are we going to have to get back to paying people to do really good content for us because there's a lot of not so good content? Where's this going? Where are we now?
I think you can take it a step farther and what's sponsored content versus what's actual news.
Yeah.
More and more publishers are blurring that wall, including some of the the larger players, and it's how that's going to how are they going to communicate what's actually news and what's not is going to be an interesting discussion, I think. In the next couple months.
When I think about content, I think about curation, because I think that's one of the coolest things going on right now is that content is being curated for us. Let's use like Flipboard as an example, being from multiple sources all put within one particular experience. And I see kind of the future of that using more and more social cues and more behavioral cues of the type of sites that I've gone to in the past. So my content is going to become a lot more relevant to me, and the source is going to become obscure.
So the more information you're giving out through the social channels, the more we're going to be able to give you relevant content as a user. Am I hearing you say that? Or
yeah, and the degree to which I could even categorize or tip off whatever the curation source is.
Yep.
But the degree to which I could tip off to them what I like, what my desires are, I think it becomes a lot more of an interesting experience. 010, by far my favorite app was Flipboard, because it probably saved me a half an hour a day.
It was my favorite as well.
No question. Being able to get TechCrunch, Mashable, and everything all within one experience.
At Incisive Media, we're looking at that. Who can be in our network. We'll write something original, but then we'll try and wrap it with a bunch of trusted sources. So you made a point. I'm not sure I agree. I think the source is going to be important. There are lots of sources out there, and there are a lot of people pretending to be experts. But I think the trusted source is still gonna rise above.
Yeah.
And That's a very important space for Google as well, right? Is figuring out which of the content that's out there is the most trusted, the most relevant. So I agree. I mean, moderation and curation is a big aspect of that, and it can be done really well by humans at news organizations. And Google's approach will probably be a little bit more looking at the signals, such as, who are your friends, who are you connected to, and how do people respond to getting to a certain piece of content? Do they, tend to stay there? Do they tend to not like it? Yeah. And then that's going to build sort of a picture of what the content is that's most relevant to you.
Yeah. So Chris made me think a little bit, and you as well, Frederick, about this exchange of data, right? What this value proposition to the consumer of, if you give me more data, we'll give you more relevancy. How do we balance this? Because you can keep asking for more and more information, and build this universal profile that can go to the nth degree. Where do we draw the lines on what we ask for versus what we serve up, and how does that look, and how do we properly communicate that to the consumer?
And that's the key thing, right? It's properly communicating it, because you can do a lot of things without the consumer knowing what's going on, and you can violate their privacy a million ways. Yeah. So from our perspective, we really think it's important to tell the consumer, the user, what is it that we're doing and how does that benefit you, and then give you a whole set of controls around that. So if you don't like it, you can opt out of it. So if users hate anything personalized, then they can opt out of that. But at the same time, whenever we've done these efforts, we have seen that when you properly educate the users and tell them the benefits coming from this customization, they actually decide not to opt out. They might tweak the profile that they have with us, but they actually do enjoy the customized content.
Yep, interesting.
I think this year we've got the New York Times that's going to introduce a metered paywall. Yeah. We've got other big publishers that are looking to go down that road. So it's even less about asking certain registration data to earn that trust. I mean, there's going to be an actual wall. So the entire industry will be looking like, okay, what's the consumer behavior going to be after that happens? Yep. And how do we build a business model that's similar to that, or kind of tweak it?
Yeah, and the implications on Google SEO-wise when you put up the wall is just immense, and you just start going back to thinking, well, that's just so much more opportunity for the free content guys again. So where is this wave kind of stop in the middle of this pool and stop shifting on us? So it's going to be interesting to see that play out for sure. Good. So how about we move into some analytics, right? As many of you guys represent certain publishers in the space or have dealt with these issues. What should your advertisers, right? What should advertisers overall be looking at for their analytics when they have an ad on a website, on Google or on the San Diego Tribune? What are the key things? Because all we can see now that I know of is click-through rates, right? And how many times that impression is being served up. But can we get beyond that? And are the publishers moving to help uncover where the value is coming from those things?
Sure. And I think that's where there's a whole spectrum, right? So when you look at search traditionally, it's mostly been direct response. So the advertiser looks at actual conversion rates and purchases happening off of each keyword.
You're going to see also as publishers get into the e-commerce game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Chris has a lot of background in this from an
affiliate. So become an affiliate, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, as an affiliate, that's one way, or maybe even actually getting into the sourcing and
doing the actual
warehousing of goods. But either way, it's going to be a new revenue stream. It's going to also give publishers a lot more data on what their subscribers, what their readers do kind of after the click.
And they can give that data back to people. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, we launched a Groupon clone-like product last April for San Diego, and in January of 2011, we did more revenue in that e-commerce type product than we did in our entire other core business.
Wow.
So that just shows you that publishers will start getting in the middle of the transaction and actually start making some real money. So that's where it gets exciting.
That sounds really exciting. It's time to get back in the publishing business.
Right.
One point I would make for publishers too is, so I think the market over the past couple of years has really been trained to think about direct response maybe a little bit too much. And there's certainly value in branding as well, and it's just that we haven't had good metrics within it. Yeah. And now we're starting to look maybe more at engagement, right? Yeah. So if you have an ad unit, what does it people do within that ad unit? Yeah. And how do you then decide what that's worth? And so we're doing baby steps in that space, but there's certainly value in that too, and that should be a revenue stream going forward.
Well, and data is dangerous, right? Because gotten in the wrong hands, which unfortunately means most marketing professionals, we're just not data people, right? You start looking like, oh, I can track this, I can track that, and you expect to be able to track the world, and you're getting a lot of erroneous assumptions here. So, I just wonder as publishers how you guys feel about all this data that's out there, but not really actionable stuff, and it's just kind of leading people to believe that they should be able to track the attribution question where they really can't. You guys having problems with that?
If you look at kind of historically, I mean, if you just go back, many traditional publishers might have had data in 5 or 6 different systems. no way of actually getting any of this together and figuring out anything to do with attribution.
Yeah.
But I think those publishers or those publishing days are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, from small to large, I mean, everyone's investing in kind of bringing all that data together. And once it's together, it's actually not that cumbersome to get through. If you
Bringing
have
in
the
those
right
different
people.